development, sourcing services in the intimate apparel industry, swimwear, shapewear, loungewear, and all of these wonderful related categories that all of us are operating in. About a year ago, I reached out to the guys here that run the Interfilier show, and I said, we have not had a show here in New York in years. And we looked back, and it had been since 2019, pre-pandemic, and I said, can we please do a show? And they said, sure, you want to help us put it together? So that's how I ended up getting involved in Interfilier this time around, and I was happy to support them in helping pull it together and make sure we got all of you folks here into the room. This particular panel I'm really excited about. I met these guys from ONBRAND, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago at another trade show. And in my business was starting to grow, and we were, still using Excel sheets and Dropbox and all sorts of stuff. And I said, I really think we need to get some sort of a system. But my experience had always been that they were these massive systems that had been built for companies and that were like astronomically expensive. And I didn't think, someone with a business of my size would be able to incorporate something like this. So I got hooked up with these guys, fell in love with them as humans, and now we're doing some business together. And so I said, come do this show with me because you are so interesting as humans, in addition to, the service that you provide with ONBRAND. So I'm excited to introduce Preston Plowman. He is the founder and CEO of ONBRAND. And we're going to wave over here to his co-founder, Brian Kimball. Brian Kimball is the
brains.
I was just going to say the brain. He's actually the brains behind this whole thing. And I did get a preview of this, and I'm like, I'm like blown away. It is so interesting and exciting. So Preston lives in Texas. He is a girl dad, 3 girls under the age of 9. He's married. He was an intelligence officer in the U.S. Air Force. Hello. How cool is that, right?
Now you're embarrassed?
No, sorry. Now he's like blushing. I could go on and on. And he was with Boston Consulting Group, and then I'll let him tell the story of how he founded and decided that there was a need for a new product like ONBRAND and where they're headed and why I'm so excited about this and was like, I have to do this introduction. So I'm here also to help facilitate. So we do want you guys to tell us what your needs are. I have the mic. I will, if you want to ask a question. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to you. And then again, just if you need me, I am sitting right here.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Nice to meet you guys. So as Moira said, this is going to be as interactive as you guys would like it to be. Is it me or does this mic sound weird and different from yours? Okay, it's just me. Cool. Sounds weird now coming into my ears. So yeah, thank you for that introduction. Let me give you a super quick background about what we're going to talk about today, and also want to dive just a little bit into why I started ONBRAND together with Brian and what we're trying to do and accomplish, and then we'll dive into the meat of what we're going to talk about today. And that might not be working, so I'm just going to use my arrow keys. Okay, there we go. So as you guys saw, it's listed as a panel. There's not really a panel here, and so you guys are going to be a pseudo panel for me. And I am serious that I do want a lot of interaction from you guys. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I want to get feedback. I'm going to show you some really interesting things, some really new things related to product development, design, AI, and I want to hear what you guys think, whether it's good, bad, ugly. You've done this before, so let's make this as interactive as possible. So what we're going to talk about today is how brands can leverage technology to move from idea to prototype to production faster, more efficiently, and with more time spent creatively. I think sometimes as we talk about driving efficiency in a business and cutting out cost, a lot of times the creativity part, what defines many brands, starts to get set by the wayside. And that's definitely not what we, intentionally we don't want that to happen, right? A brand's identity is obviously core to itself, and as brands are scaling, that's so important to maintain that. And so The two tools specifically we're going to be talking about today, PLM, Product Lifecycle Management, and AI. And what we're not going to talk about today is post-production. So logistics, inventory, sales, CRM, all that stuff. Not talking about just everything prior to that. So hopefully you guys are the right audience. I think you are. This is where my domain of expertise lies, and so that's why we're going to talk about that. So let me ask you guys a question. I have an assumption, but I want you guys to be honest. Who here is, of the two, PLM and AI, who of you is much more interested about AI? Raise your hand. Okay, don't be shy, it's okay. My feelings won't be hurt. And who is more interested in PLM and what that is, what it does, what it relates to? Okay, cool. Let me explain it. That is such a great question, and you teed me off to my next slide. What is PLM? Okay, so we are going to spend the bulk of this on AI. We do have a booth in the back, so please come talk to us if you want to go any more in depth into PLM. I will explain what it is, what it does, and why we started it, because that's our product today. But we are working on some really cool AI tools that we're going to focus on today. So PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management. It is a software tool for, click the next slide. It is a software tool for designers and developers to help with their process going from idea through prototyping to production. So how many of you guys are making tech packs today? Involved somewhat in the process, right? So think of PLM as a tool, as a single source of truth for all of your product development data, your technical designs, your technical development, your specs, fabrics, trims, components, all that stuff is leveraged within a PLM tool to build up kind of like Lego blocks, and you're building a big castle. And then taking that information, wrapped up into a tech pack, and sharing that with the factory to eventually get that product to market. So that's at the core what a PLM is. PLM is a software tool that's been around for 35 years. So it's not new to the industry, but we are, maybe this goes back to my story and what Moira was saying about why she was really excited to find us and why we got started. And it was because there was a big gap between all the growing emerging brands in the market who product development and design, the process is the same for a small brand as it is for the biggest brands in the market, right? But there weren't software tools for the smaller brands to get up and running quicker and more efficiently. And there definitely wasn't a tool that allowed them to scale and grow with that platform as they went from 2 or 3 people to 5 to 10 to 100 or more. And so that's what our goal is with ONBRAND and what we're doing today. So this is my little tagline on the top. So ONBRAND is the modern PLM built for designers and product developers with all the functionality of enterprise PLM at a fraction of the cost and implementation times. Maybe 2 more questions on the PLM piece, and then I'll move on from it for now. Obviously, we'll have questions and everything at the end. How many of you today have a PLM and are using it frequently? Okay. How many of you, this is the first time you've heard of PLM and you're like, this is interesting, didn't know this existed? Okay. And how many of you are in the market of thinking about getting a tool like this maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, whether getting it from scratch or switching tools? Okay, a couple people. Awesome, love to see it. So again, please come see us in the back. We would love to get more in depth with you guys, show you what it does, why it's amazing. And yeah, I saw you jump up. Do you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, please. See, when we're both on mic, it's not good. There we go. Awkward. Yeah, awkward. So Brian, Dennis, raise your hand. I know you're videotaping there. Hi, everybody. Okay, that's Brian. So you're gonna want to go see him and get a little demo of this, because I was like blown away when I saw what this software, as it is today, what it could do, and how easily I could pull in information. Like if I know that I use Golden Horizon article number XYZ, and I'm going to use that same fabric over and over and over again, right? Like I don't have to then go find the old tech pack in an Excel sheet and copy and paste that information. Like it just like pulls this information all in, right? It was like so easy, and I'm not particularly techie, and maybe that's why it was like so mind-blowing to me, because I was like, thank you. Finally, there's something like this. So please go get a little bit of a demo. And then what I loved about it is, as a new company that is still building and still learning, they were like, well, what do you need this to do, right? What can we implement? We'll put that in the product roadmap and make that happen, right? And you'll get to see here as Preston goes on where they're headed, and that's the piece that like is so exciting to me, and I wanted to be in on the ground floor with you guys.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, to that point, what you guys see here on the right-hand side of the page, the collaborative project management, that was our first major release after PLM. So think about time and action calendar and all the steps I need to go through to approvals, what sampling stages, whose responsibility is it, all that stuff happens within project management. So it's a nice tool that combines your single source of truth for all your data, your tech packs, everything, prototyping, collaboration with the factory, and process to get this product to market. Okay. So now let's touch a little bit on AI. Actually, first, since we were just on that, any questions? I said I wanted to make this collaborative and have you guys input. Any questions? Any thoughts? Anything so far? Okay. You guys are a lively bunch today. Okay. Who has seen this chart before? Who knows what this is? It floats around I feel like I see it on like LinkedIn every like 2 years. It pops up. So this, what's that? Yes, this is Gartner's hype cycle. So what this is showing is whenever a new technology comes out, this is basically the general process, the sentiment of what happens when people hear about something new. So the best example of this, and we'll cover this obviously, is when AI. Think about the first time you heard of ChatGPT. You're probably like, what is this? What does it do? I don't know about that. And then eventually it starts to rise, the visibility to the peak of inflated expectations. Everybody in the world has heard of this, and oh my gosh, it's going to take my job, and robots are going to be ruling the earth, and we're doomed as a civilization. And then you start to come down that trough when you start to realize, like, okay, maybe it's not going to do all those things until you hit the bottom here, the trough of disillusionment, where it kind of leaves the zeitgeist of the general population. Like, people just aren't talking about it as much anymore. Maybe AI isn't the best example because I feel like that's still everywhere. But there's some other good examples we're going to talk about. And then it starts to become a little bit more visible with time as people start to really learn, what is this tool, what can it do realistically, and how can I incorporate it into my job or my daily life or whatever that is. So to illustrate a little bit about what that looks like, let's talk about 3D in design and development. So I would say maybe 5 to 10 years ago, this panel would have been on 3D, right? And everybody would be talking about this. So curious from you guys, where would you say 3D falls? And there's not a right or wrong answer here, but just curious, like, where do you guys think 3D falls on this right now? Before the peak? Disillusionment? Yeah. Okay. Why do you guys say disillusionment?
I think the learning curve for it was high, particularly for designers that became more kind of the tech tools, and I think everybody's kind of realized that's played with it. And so while there was a lot of hype about it for a while, and companies stopped putting their money into training their teams and developing that because it just took too long.
Yeah, it took too long, and what was it sold as originally? Not necessarily from the companies. I'm not disparaging them at all, but like, what was everybody talking about? How this is going to change?
Sustainability.
Okay, sustainability.
Right.
Yep.
And time savings as well, money, time.
Mm-hmm.
Fit.
Yep. Fits. Yeah. It was definitely sold and as a tool that was just going to totally revolutionize everything designers and technical designers are doing. Like, your jobs are obsolete, go away, we don't need you anymore. We're just going to be able to turn a light switch and this tool comes in, right? So I think 3D is a perfect example of where this at, and I think you guys are all hitting exactly how I felt with this, right? So peak of inflated expectations, everybody thinks this is going to be game changing. Then we start to not hear about it for a while. The trough of disillusionment as you realize, like, okay, what actually does this tool do, and how can it help me? And realizing that, okay, maybe it isn't going to replace technical designer jobs or make it that much easier. It's actually going to cut 1 or 2 prototype cycles out of my process. Okay, like that's really cool. That's super valuable. It's not totally eliminating all of my prototyping, but it's doing something. Okay, cool. And 3D is pretty unique too, because there's a pretty high barrier for entry where you have to buy an expensive software tool, and then you have to train people on how to use it, and it's not something you can just flip the light switch on and immediately be using. Okay, so I would definitely say that we're maybe even past the slope of enlightenment with 3D, and we're at the plateau of productivity. Everybody knows exactly how to use it, those people that are using it, and there's not much confusion as to like, oh, what else can it do? I think people are pretty solidly know what it is. So, cool. Now let's talk about AI, just general AI. Think of ChatGPT. Where do you guys think we are?
Peak of inflated expectations.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. Where it's pretty amazing what it can do and the things we've seen it do. Although I might even argue though that we're on the downslope there. That I think maybe a year ago, as people saw it for the first time, we're just blown away. I know I was when my buddy showed it to me in his room, and he's like, "Look, it's going to write me an email." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I can't write an email for you." And then all of a sudden, boom! It spit out like a 10-paragraph email with like 3 words. It was insane. And so there's some things that it does extremely, extremely well, and there's other things that it doesn't quite do well. And so that's why we're, I think, starting to come down that as people are starting to understand what this tool is, what it's for, how can it help me. Now, more specifically for you guys in the room, actually I didn't do a poll. How many of you guys are involved somewhat in the design and development process of apparel? Okay, almost everybody. Okay, so this should be very pertinent to you guys. It's almost like it's an audience for this. It's crazy. So where do you guys think we are with using AI in the design and development process?
Is
Anybody here yet using AI in design?
what would technology trigger? What would an example be of?
He's going to show you examples. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. So nobody
Yes.
here is yet using it or knows, maybe a few people know how you could potentially use it. Okay, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
So let's give them some
Cool.
examples.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought we might be at like a peak of inflated expectations, but I think we're even earlier than that. We haven't inflated any expectations yet. So cool. So let's get into it. I've got some really cool slides walking you guys through examples of what AI can do today. Just your regular AI tools that everybody can go out and use, and then some additional things AI can do that is specifically trained on a designer or developer's workflow, which is what we're working on right now at ONBRAND. And so we'll show you guys that. So just some current thoughts about using this. I think everybody is probably on the same track here. It sounds like nobody's really used AI for visual inspiration. Is anybody worried that AI is going to take your job? Okay. All right. And
Not yet. I might
Not
be
yet,
at the end
yeah.
of this section, right?
that's not our goal, so don't worry. Is anybody at a company where there's maybe a mandate from leadership or the brand as a whole to be like, we need AI, figure out how to use it? Anybody have that? A couple people?
May I ask what company you're with? Moira International. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Cool.
And what company are you with? I'm doing. It's a lot more concepting and creating clothing on avatars. More like a bells and whistles for sales team and marketing. Got it.
So like,
Concept,
yeah.
iteration, all of that.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Did everybody hear that? Yeah.
Okay. And then just a couple thoughts about like when there's a new technology, some thought process I always go through of how to think about using this. Is this going to be useful to me? Right? Is it going to save me time? Is it going to make my customers happier? Or is it going to help me generate more revenue? Right? Is another way to say that. Is it going to save me money? And can this fit easily into my existing process? Right? And maybe 3D again is another great example here of the last bullet point. Like 3D definitely touches on all these, but it was hard to really incorporate and do the existing process. There was some barriers to entry. Yes.
Would something be taking this, I don't know if this is the same thing, but taking the sketch and turning it 3D or into a photo, is that considered something using AI?
Yeah.
So I have tried it recently.
Okay.
Yeah, new art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did it work? Was it helpful?
It was helpful, but it was tough trying to get the exact match of my sketch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did everybody hear that? I want to make sure. Okay. So, what is your name?
Ashley Nicole.
Ashley Nicole said that she had a sketch and then she wanted to translate into on like a 3D or on body photo, and that it sort of got the gist of what she was trying to do, but it wasn't executing and translating her sketch exactly into what she wanted it to do. So it was like almost there, but so in the end, were you able to even use it? Like, could you put it in front of, like, whether it's coworkers, colleagues, buyers?
Right, I wanted to use it for my website, so I'm using it, but it's not. It just takes a lot of trial and error to just get it.
Got it. So a lot of trial and error to get what she wants it to do. That's helpful. Okay.
Okay. So let's go through some examples with pictures, which is a lot more interesting than text. So let's do it. Okay. So I went and used 2 different models that are available out there publicly. My prompt here is create an image of a model wearing a women's quarter zip with a broad stripe across the chest. And these are the results I got. So OpenAI was on the left, and Stable Diffusion is another one on the right. What do you guys think? Helpful, not helpful, like blown away, not blown away?
The one on the right is
I
more
mean, the
realistic.
more specific you get, the more
Mm-hmm.
specific images, and that would be helpful.
Yeah. So what's the step next beyond this? What do you guys, like, let's say you get this, you're like, okay, what do you do next? Generally.
Put it in a concept that
Yeah.
use it as inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you even mentioned earlier, like, this probably isn't exactly what you wanted, so we're gonna have to tweak this and refine it, right? So that's exactly what I did in this next slide, is I said, okay, that was cool, a good start, now let me start to adjust that. Exactly the same process a designer would go through when concepting this art is like, okay, now let's start to refine, get closer to my actual idea. So I tweaked the prompt and I said, can you change the color of the stripe to be blue and change the fabric to be more athletic looking? And this is what the 2 put out. So interesting, did a pretty good job. I think still getting closer to what I wanted, right? I'll just flip back and forth a little bit to show you. Although there's a couple things happening that maybe I didn't want, right? Where you can see some of the cut lines and some of the design details are changing from one to the other, because I'm not necessarily specifying a ton of information in detail. Okay, but still, like, hey, this is really helpful maybe for inspiration. So then I wanted to say, hey, what about a line sketch? Can I do that? So my prompt here was generate a fashion line sketch for a pair of women's joggers with hip pockets and a cargo pocket on the right leg. And this is what it generated. So again, I think, okay, pretty interesting. Some things you'll notice with AI, with image generation, is you'll get artifacts, some weird things happening. So if you notice on the picture on the right-hand side, the cuff on the left leg is like, there's 2 cuffs there. So there's a couple little details that are interesting, but again, it's really helpful. The most important thing is to think about, what am I trying to accomplish here, right? Like, maybe I'm not intending to send this to a factory, but I'm getting some inspiration, and this is helping me just ideate, be more creative, help me do my job better and a little bit faster. Okay, this is pretty cool. But again, maybe this isn't exactly what you wanted, so let's refine this, or better yet, let's apply a pattern to this. What do you guys think is going to happen? Let's find out. So I said, take this exact same image and recolor it with a leopard print. And then this is the results that I got. Right? So it's closer. It's maybe not something I would feel comfortable sharing with even anybody on my team. It's you can see the text. It added some text there. It said Wims, I think poggers, something like that. Cargo pockets on the leg. Pretty interesting. And then on the right, you'll notice that it's actually different, right? It's got one on model and the one off model are actually two different patterns that's using. But again, for inspiration, like, hey, how much time would this take you guys to do in your normal process? Maybe let me just ask you guys that. Like, of course, it's not perfect, but just to go through an exercise like this, how much time is that going to take you guys?
An hour. At least an hour, yeah.
Yeah. So again, for what it's trying to do here, like some inspiration. Let me just get this out quick. It's pretty interesting. Okay. I was gonna do one together, but just because of time, I'm gonna keep going.
I think that would be really
Okay,
cool.
sure,
Can
we
we
can
do
do
that
it.
real fast?
Yeah.
Brian, you got it?
Well, I'll do it on my end, and then I'll share. So let me ask a volunteer who would like to give me a prompt, and let's see what AI spits out for us.
Lingerie.
Let's do it. What do you got?
Describe it.
Yeah, just describe.
Purple polka dot. Strappy, lace, eyelash, lingerie set.
Did you catch that? Yeah.
Strappy lace eyelash lingerie set.
Strappy, so let's say strappy eyelash lace lingerie set with underwire. There you go. Throw that in there. Let's see what happens.
Okay, I
Ready?
don't know my screen, so if there's anything crazy, I won't display it. But yeah.
Fun part.
Okay, it's taking a second to think. Yeah, I don't know if ChatGPT is liking me right now. You guys broke it.
Everyone's jobs are safe.
Okay, now it's generating. Cool. So this is gonna work.
What is it?
A strappy eyelash lace lingerie set with underwear. Oh, it said I wasn't able to generate the image because it didn't follow content policy guidelines. So shame.
Let's try
maybe an activewear.
swimwear. Yeah.
Or swimwear.
I might. So the general public, like open ones, they have content filters for like
Yeah.
nudity, and
They don't want obviously anything
they don't like.
pornographic or suggestive, right? And so it restricts. But maybe this is a good example of that. So
Can we do swimwear real fast?
yeah. Well, give me a swimwear one.
Two-piece bikini swimwear, yellow and white stripes.
That is yellow.
Yellow and white stripes, halter top. Right?
Moira, what'd you say?
I have a question. What would be your suggestion to master the prompt? Because basically I think it's all about what we're putting in. Is there a way to master that?
So I think it's just be as specific as possible. Like I as I was thinking, I was like with halter, with, right? So you need to be really specific. And once you get one, now you can say, okay, I need you to lower the waist, right, and raise the leg, right? Like on this, I'm like, ugh, right? I could refine this 1,000 different ways just looking at it. But I mean, for a first shot, okay, not bad.
And honestly, this is kind of the meta point I'm trying to make here, is that with these tools, there's a lot of restrictions you run into, right? Hey, you want to do lingerie? Like, sorry, with these tools, it doesn't work. You want to start refining this, as I showed in those other examples earlier. Like with these open source tools, it's not built for that, and so it's not going to be perfect. So like, but to do what it's doing, which is like, hey, just generate some sort of inspiration image, using text, it does a great job, right? Like, okay, that's interesting. Maybe I wanted the stripes the other way, so you could ask it to adjust and revert. So it does a good job with a lot of this stuff.
You have a question?
Iterate off of that, right? I don't want it to be the same thing, but I want to gain some inspiration from that, right? But then what's the next step here? I want to maybe turn this into a flat that I can recolor. Maybe I want to make some tweaks and some edits. So that's what I did here. But again, you'll notice that the actual knit pattern is changing and some other details are changing. Then I said, okay, take this exact flat, recolor it in forest green and lilac. And you'll notice, again, both of those are slightly different with the knit pattern. So not perfect, but still pretty interesting. So my questions here is like, what's next? Would anybody here be comfortable sending this to your factory and expecting to have good results? Would anybody be concerned with sending this to a factory? Okay, yeah, I think that's the right answer for probably everybody. So let me just touch on the important takeaways, and then let me show you how ONBRAND is solving a lot of these tools to help bridge this gap between idea and product. So number one, if you're using a public model, your data is not your own, right? So if I generate a style in ChatGPT, that's ChatGPT's data now, right? And they can use that to train future models. So you might start, if you generate the coolest, lingerie set, if eventually you're able to figure out a way to let you do it, now you start seeing that all over the place because your data is now not yours. The models, as you've seen, are also not trained to behave like a designer, which is why it doesn't do those next steps that you guys are all expecting it to do. And sorry, I didn't catch your name, but the model is also not trained on your brand's data. And so the output you get is whatever it's trained on, right? And so if you have a very specific style or theme and you want your products to come out looking like your brand and your brand's identity, you're not going to get that with an open model. It's not collaborative, of course. And this, for most brands, is a very collaborative process. So how can we close the gap further between idea and development, right? And ONBRAND AI is bridging that gap between ideation and physical product. So here we have on the left that sketch of the sweater that we had, and all the other stuff that need to happen to think about what else needs to go into a tech pack or whatever it is I'm sending or communicating to my factory to get this product to market, right? It's more detailed sketches, it's colorways, it's it's fabrication details, it's specs, it's a bill of materials, and even some modeling photos. So let me show you some really interesting things that the tool we're working on right now is solving. So whatever you see in the next couple slides outlined in black is an image we did not generate. Everything else that's not outlined in black, our AI tool created. So this is what we started with, an inspiration photo, and I said, hey, I want to use this as inspiration, generate something very, very similar but not the exact same for me that I can then leverage. So it generated this on the right, where it's like, okay, generated this in blue, same color. Then I said, hey, I want to recolor that to salmon or to pink. It generated that. And then convert that into more of a line sketch that I could take. It did that as well.
So in this, we're seeing a lot more consistency from one iteration to the other versus what you were seeing in the open sources. Okay. Did you give it any other information? Like I can see from my angle here, it looks like the neckline is different, right? Like so one is a crossover, whereas the original is a V-neck. Did you give it some of those details, or you just said make something similar and it adapted that?
Yeah, maybe Brian, you can answer that.
So one of the benefits of our system too is that you're asking how do we make a good prompt. We actually analyze images for you and generate the prompts from it. Then you can refine it. If you wanted to change that, like you didn't want that arm detail, you wanted the belt or the closure to be different, you could kind of edit that part of the description as it transfers that to the design, which is really, really helpful in what you're doing. And you don't have to spend that mental capacity to write like a really descriptive, oh, what are all the details of this thing that are important for it to know? So it's really, makes it really easy to streamline your process.
So this is designed for designers, right? So your AI system knows how to take those prompts way more effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. The best way to describe it again is just going another step or two down the line for what you as designers and developers are doing to prototype this product or hand it off to development, whatever it is. Yeah.
My question is the sketch, the line sketch, is it editable? Can you make a vector out of it so that you could then do the back of it? Or do you have to keep
You're a great plan.
Yeah. And that's exactly the type of thought process that we've gone through in building this, is like what else happens, right? This obviously is imprecise because I'm only using text to describe things, and you might have a super specific idea. This gets you 90% there, but you're like, I actually want the neckline a little different. I want a cut line here. And so let me skip ahead a couple slides. So close your eyes, everybody. And so that's exactly what our tool does, is it can seamlessly go from format to format, so from sketch to photorealistic to even on model, back to sketch, and then push to AI through our native AI integration, which you'll see on this slide, where now I can push that in a vectored format where it's already vectored for me, and I can play around in Illustrator as much as I want, right? We, designers, you guys, you don't want to learn another design tool, right? Illustrator is perfect for what you guys want to do. Nobody wants to leave it. And so this is a way for you to develop inspiration and quickly get closer, 90% there. And then the last 10%, some people don't need 10%, right? Because maybe the factory's going to do it. But for those of you who do need that precision, it's as simple as pushing this back in Illustrator, making your adjustments, pulling it back in.
How big are these files?
Which
SVGs.
ones?
Just like in general, like which,
So all of the
The question was, how big are these files?
because if you want to like put a few things together and then the prints and this,
Yeah, they're not too big. All of the image data is 1024 by 1024 generated. We have an upscaler, so we can upscale to larger things, and then the vector graphics are small. It's all the weight that Adobe Illustrator puts it in when you convert it to an AI file.
There's a question in the back as
Yeah.
well, and one over here.
Yeah, so
Please.
I just had a question. So when you get to the render that you like, that's like, on the side there, is there a very specific way or any tricks on how to get the colors that you like? If you want to show it in a color run, are you able to reference Pantones? Or it's hard when I play with the other systems to say salmon, and that's so, you can interpret it so many ways. Is there any way?
Yes, so we have a Pantone integration, so you can pull in Pantone colors, and it will apply. It'll do its best to match that, right? Yes.
That's part of our proprietary model
Yep.
that we kind of integrate into it, is that we do specific color and specific patterns and prints with it, so that there's like a guidance on how close it gets. There's different parts where you could write salmon if you wanted to, and it will give you 3 different salmons and stuff like that. But we allow you to keep your color palette along the journey.
Yep.
There was another question back here. Preston, do you want to?
What are the limitations with prompts? So let's say you're prompting to design something very, very specific, stitch, etc., textures. What are the limitations?
What are the limitations with the prompts, right? You're being very, very specific with type of stitch, type of fabrication,
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah, great question. So for very, very specific details, that's where like a good rule of thumb is this is probably going to get you 90% of the way there. I wouldn't expect this, at least today. Obviously, we're working to close that gap as much as we can. But that's why you have this Illustrator integration as well, so that you can have full control over getting that last bit instead of banging your head against the wall trying to like get an AI prompt to work exactly how you want it to. But yeah, so something like that, in some cases it'll probably work well. In other cases it probably won't. It just is very dependent on exactly what you're trying to do. Okay.
Ooh, a couple more.
Please.
Camille?
Yeah, hi everybody. I just want to know if I want to do bras.
Yeah.
You all have to go to the back and
Camila's asking, in bras, right? We need to be really specific about the front, the side, the back, and even inside, right? Every detail. So we could get that detailed eventually. You're working on it.
Yeah. I'm looking at Brian because I don't want to say anything that'll get me in trouble. So
I'll help you, Brian.
we're still in development of this right now. Again, I think on a case-by-case basis, you might get something really good. You might not. But there are, eventually we'll have models that are more specifically trained, like category by category, that will be like, okay, this is learning based off intimates, and so it will produce much better stuff for intimates, if that makes sense, right?
Are you speaking of the
It's typing, yeah. Not verbal, not right now. Yeah, you just type into a prompt, yeah, just like ChatGPT. Yeah, more questions.
Presumably, as you said, if you've got your own platform, you're training your platform, so if you use a prompt once or twice, it would then understand you, so you could invest in the time of teaching it.
Is it
what
learning?
you do as a brand.
So we do have some learning stuff that's going to be in there, but you don't usually like rerun learning immediately. So it's basically you wait until you aggregate all the data, and then the next version of the model will incorporate everything that the people have done, and then that's kind of the opportunity to have. We'll have our general models that are generally developed for fashion in your process, and then proprietary models that you can pay to have built on your styles and your stuff that's isolated to yours.
But we could, in theory, say I say, okay, I developed the perfect strapless bra in my ONBRAND system, right? I buy the program, right? Now I'll have that saved in there, right? And we know that we're often using pattern blocks and iterating on styles. So I think that once you have that in there, right, you would be able to just capture, right, style XYZ. Now for this season, I want to do it in these 3 colors. Now I want to have a lace overlay, right? I think that would make sense in our situation here. There's still 2 more questions. I'm going to come to the back with the microphone.
I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what the data was trained on and like how different it is from from ChatGPT or from Midjourney, and then the copyright issues of that. Like, can you reference a specific designer that you want to do something in the style of but not the same of, or will you get a prompt back saying that that's copyright infringement? And then I guess how often is the learning updated? Like the next season I go and enter some prompts, am I going to keep getting the same iterations of a design?
So no to that first one. Like it's very good at generating new stuff, especially if you're adding more and more information. And typically whenever you're generating anything net new, we provide 4, and then you can pick one or all of them and then continue to iterate off of those. So it'll go as far as you want it to go. And we're constantly working on these algorithms to get them to perform even better. And so just like think of how ChatGPT works, right? How it had ChatGPT 3 and then 4 and then et cetera, similar type concept. And there was one other piece there. Copyrights. So no, there won't be any copyright information. The best results that you would get would be providing it information or describing the look of the designer, or pasting an image here from the designer and let our tool describe it for you, because it'll look at the image and then provide a description, and then you can add to that and say how you want to adjust it or change it or recolor it or whatever. Yeah.
There was another question.
We got one in front real quick.
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
What flexibility do you have in terms of uploading the models or the avatars? If you have a plus range or a standard range, how do you have it generate patterns that look good enough?
Great question. I don't think we've done anything on that yet.
Yeah, our virtual try-on stuff is we're still working on. So, but that's kind of what this is here, and it came out with a really great result. but being able to use your own custom models and training it on that. So if you have plus size or whatever you want to use, those will start to hopefully translate better and better. But I just don't think we have enough information. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there and a lot of really cool stuff that we're working on in the capabilities. We're at the peak with what that could do, but probably still too soon for us to be talking about it. And I think, especially with intimates and some different types of products, you're going to get varying results on how complex that garment is and how it will translate.
And I just want to be clear. So you're creating, what I would just say CAD images or line sketches and whatnot. And we're not yet at the stage where it can now create a paper pattern that can be handed to a seamstress, right?
Yes.
So I just want to be really clear on that.
Yeah.
You still got to, get the pattern made.
Yeah.
And so you would, that's where again we're not going to get laid off tomorrow. They still need specs from us and some, that sort of information and
You
bill of
still need our
materials
PLM.
information. Yeah. So you still need you still need the front end, the PLM system that they have.
Cool.
All right, there's a couple more slides I know you want to show.
Yeah,
and
let me pause on questions right now, and then just to show you a couple more really cool things here in the AI tool, and then happy to continue with any questions. So, so again, this was a all these images totally generated in ONBRAND, so it looks pretty good, right? It looks pretty realistic, and again, it's really easy to come in here, recolor this very quickly. Not saying that you would want to replace your actual modeling photography and marketing materials with that, but like, hey, if you generate this and you're like, I want to visualize this in a different way on a realistic looking human, maybe you're wholesaling and you want a little bit more fidelity, this is a great tool to do that. And then you'll see also from the line sketch, very easily able to generate photorealistic images. And here's just an example of how we can go very easily from one format to the other. So from line sketch to to photorealistic, or on model, on body as well. And the Ralph Lauren example from earlier. So remember, the black box is stuff that we didn't create, but everything else is. And so we generated our own version of this, which I think looks a lot better than what ChatGPT did. And then very easily able to recolor that in whatever colors, whatever Pantones I want, whatever Coloro. We also have an integration with them too, so if you guys use Coloro. And then I wanted to make a line sketch and also made some adjustments and said, hey, I want this to be a little bit longer. Generates that stuff, and again, can easily push this to Illustrator and back and forth. So already touched on these. And all of this is done in a platform that is fully collaborative, right? So instead of being restricted to your ChatGPT account, right, this can have your entire design development team, your merchants, whoever is involved in the planning process for an upcoming collection and can collaborate together. You can comment, you can post sticky notes, you can add text, right? So if you wanted to create a wholesale line plan or whatever, that's what's intended to do. And then, to your point, it can be trained on your own data. So whether that's your own design data, so you want to see it spit out stuff that looks like your brand, or as we come from a PLM background, if you want a connection with your PLM and start to make generation of more development things, help you along the way with creating a tech pack. Those are things that we can do as well. Some really cool, interesting things. So everything you saw here was generated in our tool. We're still in development for this, but we are opening up a beta access to this that's going to be free. And again, it's this design tool to help brands create new styles and iterate on existing ones in our collaborative platform. This is for individuals, so solo designers, or somebody who just wants to work on their own, or for brands that want to have a tool to help them do line planning and use generative AI in the creative process. And again, the full release will include options for custom AI, model training on design and PLM data to hyper-personalize that output. So if you guys want to use this QR code to sign up, it's going to be a couple of weeks till we open it up, but anybody who'd like to try it out, and if you're involved in design development, which all of you guys I think pretty much are, would love to get feedback on the tool. Okay, I'll open up for questions.
So say you generate, you prompt it to do something, you love it, and that's the exact design that you decide to go forward with. Who owns that design? Because technically your system created it, so we're sending it exactly as is. Who owns that particular IP?
So that'll be yours. Yep, and so that,
So your system generated it?
yes. But for our usage rights, that IP will be owned by you.
And that's because we created the prompt, right? So I am the one that asked it what to do. Okay.
Exactly, and you know, we're not going to use that then to, you know, provide training data for a competitor or something like that, and so that it gets around all those issues that you have with ChatGPT. Yeah, exactly, and then especially if you have a custom model that's trained on your own brand's data, obviously that's even more hyper personalized. Yep.
I had one here, and then we'll go over here. Do I need a microphone?
I guess I have two questions. One is, it sounds like you guys have a lot of things that are in the works and coming up. How does that timeline looks like in general? Like, how quickly do you guys think you're gonna get? Like, what are those stages for us to be like, oh, we can expect to be able to do this by next year or next week? I don't know. And then my second question is, I'm interested to know, what does that tech and like AI and fashion development industry in general looks like? Like, is this something that is evolving from your research? Is this a lot of companies offering this? Is this something more unique to you guys? Like,
Two great questions. So in terms of timeline, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we expect to open up this beta access, and then full release beyond that. You know, probably come summertime, it will be available, I would expect. So definitely not a year, definitely not super far. Like, we're close, as you could see, like what the images it's generating today, really close. And in terms of like what else the landscape looks like, I would say that there are some other tools that do image generation, but nobody, at least to my knowledge, is really going further to close the gap between what designers do and what they need to do to then pass that off to like a product developer, right? Like, it's not enough to just generate a pretty image. Now, you know, if you generate a pretty image, then you got to go into Illustrator and create your line sketch or whatever format that it goes into, and then you have to identify fabrications and other trim materials, things like that. Again, depending on how your brand works, and those are the things that ONBRAND's tool will start to make easier and faster. Yes.
My question was, how, because you're generating a lot of front sketches, how does it cope with, okay, I like this front, generate a back, or can you show this from the side, or could you show this design detail of the pocket and things like that? Or is that something that you would just generate from having your front AI sketch?
Yeah, Brian, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, we do have that. We're really focused on doing like the fronts and everything and making sure the process works. But we do have ones that does side by side and front back. And that's just going to be like stuff that we continue to launch and put out there. So it is to capture the whole thing and to do it. But currently, like the exploration to make sure it's like learning right and doing things the best way and giving the best results, we've kind of just been focused on that's one use case. But yes, we totally understand that it needs to do backs and everything too. The data set that it's actually trained on is fronts and backs, so that's it.
So I have a couple questions, and I want to fill folks in a little bit on the PLM side of it, because that's what's active and up.
Yeah.
So like I said, 6 months ago or so, I signed on with these guys, and they said, and again, I've got like Dropbox folders, and I've got, sketches, and I've the Excel sheets and all this. And they said, just send it over to us, and we're going to completely upload all of that into their system, in their PLM system. So for getting brand specific type of stuff, right, you can, in theory, I'll already have a full tech pack on a style that I've been running for a couple years, now uploaded into PLM. And so the question would be, can I then, because, okay, I want to iterate on that same style. So I could pull that, right? My sketches that I did 5 years ago are already in there. I could then get these next iterations really, really quickly and save myself time and money, right?
Yes, exactly. So this tool will be standalone. So if you don't have our PLM, it's not an issue. You could still use it. Or if you're leveraging another PLM, there's ways for us to connect and pull data out of that if that's needed. But the best use case obviously is going to be, the most seamless connection will be to ONBRAND PLM. And exactly, any sort of design data you have in there, you can pull directly into the AI tool, fabrication data, colors, color palettes, all that stuff is seamless back and forth.
Awesome. And so then another question I had is because those of us that do bras and highly constructed, right, technical bras, it's like a whole nother animal. There's a lot of details that go into that. So could it potentially be that the more of us that are using ONBRAND's AI tool, that it will become smarter about bras? Or is it sort of because each of us is going to have our closed sort of loop that won't benefit anybody else in the room? Like, how do we... and you could say, I don't know yet, let me noodle on that, that's fine, but...
So, most likely we'll have like the entry-level tier where you asked about licensing and IP. We probably will use some of that to retrain for the general knowledge. If you don't opt into that or go to a different tier, then you'll have your closed system. We are going to have category-specific things for the base, so we'll have something that knows something better about intimate, something better for swimwear.
Got it.
We don't have all of those today, but if you stick with us, it'll get better and better.
Yeah.
So that, which tells me then, for them to invest in focusing on intimates, we all need to be using their system, right? And we need to make a commitment and say, hey, we want to be using ONBRAND, because otherwise, if they start getting a ton of sweater guys, right, like, you know, they're gonna...
Those dang sweater guys.
Right,
Man,
you know, whatever it might be. But I you know, I'm so committed to this tool because it really was, and affordable for me as someone that has a small business, but I'm working with multiple brands, right? So I'm a consultant. I have multiple brands, and I love that I can work with each of my brands within one system, and then I can give them, as needed, access to the piece of it that they need to tap into, right? Without them seeing all my other work and all that sort of stuff. So, all right, it's been an hour, guys, and I don't want to hold you guys up anymore. There's a lot of other stuff to see here. Any last minute thoughts, questions? Again, the guys, these ONBRAND guys, their little big table is in the back of the room right there. You can't miss it on your way out. Make sure you capture this QR code to tap into the beta. And thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you.
I probably would say this is like the model actually learns like the probably